Okay, Principal Morales, I see you. Yeah, stand up.
Right. PL, be a chocolate city, DC. I was
Okay.
born in CDX. Oh, you know, let the rocket in the house.
All right.
So Curtis, listen, tell us why you chose that as your hype song.
So my hype song is really intentional. What's up, Penn? Okay, I got Penn people in the house. All right, doctoral
Hey,
students,
Pen.
smart but doing their thing on IG tonight. Thank you so much for representing. Thank you for my sister, Dr. Clayton, in the house. So I chose Superstar today, as many of you know, is Teacher Appreciation Week. We're kicking it off today.
It is.
So I'm giving a shout out to the superstar teachers around the country that are doing their thing, making sure that they're still representing remotely for students. And, I'm fortunate to work with about 140 of them in my district, my little district, but fortunate to see so many educators just really stepping up and doing their thing. Shout out to Kai. What's up, brother? What's going on, brother?
Thank you for that, Curtis. Let me just jump on that real quick too. Teachers wear so many different hats. They wear the teacher hat, the counselor hat, the parent hat, the let me see if you ate hat, every kind of hat, and we often overlook that or forget that. So teachers, you all are superstars. We love you, and we know that there's a lot of change and a lot of adjustments that you all are making right now. Stay in the game, stay in the fight. We're here for you. You have a community that supports you and backs you up. Kurt out here getting haircuts.
Nah, I give myself a shape up. I give myself I give myself a shape up. You know what I'm saying?
Who did your shape up, Curtis?
I did it. No, I did it.
Okay, it's a good shape up.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, so Curtis.
Nah, I do my own. When we quarantine, I do my own. So I can't make it to my man. I'm getting my own. So Kai, I got you. Don't worry about it. I got you, brother. I got you.
Because everybody else out here looking, Kai's just hating. All right, so let's jump in. Curtis, I know you're doing some amazing work in community schools of Paterson.
That's right. Yep, that's right.
Okay. That is awesome. And so why don't you give us just a little bit of context of who you are, the work you've done. And tonight I really want us to focus on, what it really means to be an adaptive leader, right? And what does that actually look like on the grounds? And we're going to keep it short. We're going to keep it fun. We want you all to ask questions. No quarantine, baby. Paterson in the spot. Okay.
So I'm an educator. This is year 25 for me. Started through TFA, taught in the classroom for a while, moved into leadership, and played a couple of roles in district and charter schools as APs, principals, and really fortunate about 2.5 years ago, because of Mr. Kai Adderley, who's on the call. He was a conduit to help introduce me to this opportunity. I moved to a district level role and now leading a small district in Paterson. And, like everyone else, 7 weeks ago, we had to change the game. And we really had to figure out how we could adjust the real-time teaching into a remote setting remotely. And I have to tell you, it is for me, it's been an amazing experience to have this ability to really rethink how we teach children, how we support children remotely, and how we stay connected with people. I'm fortunate to have the ability to just create that vision. But I also have to say, because there's some people on the call. Oh, shout out to the noobs on the call. I see you. Okay. But I also I'm just fortunate to have so many folks that are on my team and in the campuses that I work with that are really leading the work. Dr. Ford, I see you on. He's one of the leaders on here that are leading this work that are just leading this work and really taking this work of rethinking education to the next level. So there's definitely a lot of work that I could talk about in terms of this adaptive leadership, but I have to give a shout out to the leaders and many teachers that are like really doing this heavy work, because it's not me. I may create the vision and I'm a part of that, and I have to check on things, but the work is really being done. Oh, Callie in the house is really being done by like so many leaders that are like digging in and just making sure that children and families are getting what they need.
Yeah, so it sounds like you have like a very dynamic team of people. Talk to us a little bit about, and Kai, he mentioned this if you want to spiral this in there, but talk to us about the differences and similarities. More so, let's first focus on engagement. How are you all engaging your teachers, your staff, and then obviously your students at the core of it? How are you cultivating community? And then Kai said here, talk about the difference and similarities between BK and Paterson in reference to community engagement and parent relationships.
Right, I'll do that. So yeah, so engagement, like to real talk, like 7 weeks ago, engagement was like, how do we make sure teachers are doing the lesson plans? How do we make sure we get computers and packets out to kids? And how do we make sure we have a checkpoint with them? Now that's evolved to like, how do we like effectively deliver content online? How do we stay connected with our kids socially, emotionally? And then how do we actually make sure kids are getting food in their stomachs? Because that's a real talk issue for us that we deal with and work with on a daily basis. And then probably arguably the most important, like how do we like really make sure that we're checking on our kids that are going through real-time trauma? And I'm not just talking about like the trauma of a loved one, because that's the like real apparent stuff that we all are dealing with. But what I'm talking about is that like kids that are really struggling emotionally and socially, like how are we staying connected with them? So, you know, and this, again, this wasn't me. Like we set out 7 weeks ago to set a vision around this. And, you know, I had people on my team say, look, we're going to call our kids on a regular basis. We're going to text in with kids on a regular basis. For some people, if we couldn't get connected with them, we're essentially going to knock on doors. And we have people in masks and gloves, like literally knocking on doors to check in with families to see how kids are doing.
Wow. Yeah.
We figured out really quickly on the teacher end that how to develop online PLCs. Every group has a professional learning experience. We figured out that we don't want to have just the asynchronous where kids are like working from packets. We want to have synchronous teaching, and we're involvement to have more of that, where it's a kid live in front of a video with the teacher and they're actually working together. So we're evolving that and making sure that we're having more of that. We have looked to acknowledge teachers in special ways. So we developed this new e-newsletter that's called the Community Connection. I believe, Dr. Ford, correct me if I'm right on that. I know the new one just came out today, but I'm mixing up, but a new e-letter, and that news e-letter is like highlighting all the great stuff that we're doing. It's also pushing our teachers to like the next level. And I have to say, like, that pushing is something that we do with a high level of respect, but it's through this idea of like taking something that's good and taking it to become great. Right. Because this new world of like online teaching, no one, unless you, like Kai said it like last week, unless you have actually like gone to study how to do online training, no one knows the ins and outs of how to do that. Yeah. So we're evolving and figuring out ways to do that. With our students, engagement looks a little bit different, but there's some similarities that we're seeing there. Like last week we had an online honor roll, and we had our students invited to an online honor roll, and we gave awards online. We have a number of events in May and June. We go almost to the end of June, so but we have a number of events, everything from assembly programs to family nights where we're doing trivia night, or we're giving out gift certificates. Where we have in our elementary campus every single day, our assistant principal, shout out to Charlotte. I hope you're on here tonight, but our assistant principal does the morning greeting that she would typically do over the PA. She does it on a YouTube channel. Oh, wow. And it's like a way to stay connected with kids. Yeah. It's a way to give them that sense of normalcy of what they were used to for all the time that they were in school. And like those things are like small little things, but when we think about that, those are ways to keep kids connected with school.
Yeah.
Now, to Kai's point, Paterson is an inner city neighborhood. It's the third largest city in New Jersey. It is 10% of Patersonians have a college degree, and it's a high poverty area. It's a real deal. And I feel fortunate to be there because my mom's lived there for 20 years when she migrated up from Alabama. So it's a beauty to be in something that's kind of like a second home for me, and a place where I feel like I'm doing some really good work. So I'm really happy to be there.
Wow. Well, it sounds like your community is incredibly blessed to have you. And I love that you highlighted all the different things that you all are really doing around what I like to call this concept of like just it's simple, it's people first, right?
Right.
Like noticing your kids, having understanding, and you all are a community school, right? So understanding how important community is and cultivating that through trivia nights, through the e-newsletter, through bringing your staff together. Curtis, like I know a lot of people, that's something that they've been kind of figuring out through all of this is how do we continue to cultivate community? What are you talked about some of the things that you all have done. Have you seen any challenges in that, like for you personally as the ED in this community?
Yeah, so I mean, the biggest hurdle, and I hope I don't have some folks that will bring this back, but I mean, honestly, the biggest hurdle is like every organization has someone or a group of people that are going to be okay with doing the bare minimum and just getting by.
Yeah.
Like I was talking to an educator friend of mine, and they were saying, COVID-19 has been great for my career. I'm getting to do my deck over. I'm like, I'm mowing the lawn when I want to. I'm watching Judge Judy more often, and I'm like, how are you doing that during the day? And the reality is, he's figured out how to be able to skate through this experience and give the bare minimum and have a lot of downtime. And I'm happy to say we don't have a lot of folks like that in our organization, but every organization will have somebody that's just complacent with just doing the bare minimum. And for me, it takes three things. Like three things come to mind. First, I think it's important that you overemphasize the need to do the above and beyond work. And you do that for me by highlighting the beauty of what will happen when we give a child a good education. The beauty of what will happen when we make sure that we're checking in with them in terms of their social and emotional needs. The beauty of what will happen when we really make sure that we're providing, in so many cases, is food for children's bellies and food for families. And we really try to, leaders in my organization, really try to start with that first. And then we start from helping the individual, and I have one in mind. I wish I could say the person's name, but one in mind where, we have real talks, like, talk to me about like what's holding you up. Talk to me about why you are have an issue with this. Talk to me about what I could do to get you to see where the philosophy in which I'm trying to promote here, or we're trying to promote here as an organization. And in schools of education, I've unfortunately found that real talk with somebody is sadly sometimes lost. That real talk of like helping people to see that, this is what I'll meet you halfway on, but this is something that you really have to get on board, and this is a non-negotiable, but I'm going to help you get here. And that's a conversation at 2:00 today. That is exactly what, I had to do with someone. Now, the other piece is that I think that it's important to use this moment as an opportunity to like improve and rethink education. And part of what the conversations that I've been having is like, all right, guys, we got to really throw out this framework of what school was. And this gives us an opportunity to really get people in a position so that we can really say, look, it is important that we don't think about the way in which we did things in the past. And that's part of that vision piece that's important as leaders, and teacher leaders, and district leaders as well.
Yeah. So Curtis, I want to just plug in to read a couple of things here that are coming in from a few people. It said we're going to connect with our kids on a regular basis. That statement resonated. And then there's a question here from, actually a comment from I'm Impact says, yes, I can't hear you if my needs are being met, not being met. I'm sure is what he meant, aren't being met. Terry said, glad you are acknowledging the people who lack self-accountability. So this is real, right? You just talked about this. How are you motivating them? And how do you check in with them regularly? I'm sure that there are leaders across the board, or even educators or folks who have colleagues who know and see that like they are just doing like the bare minimum, and we know that they could be doing a little bit more. So talk to us about that. And then I have
so Columbia people on here. I know that y'all remember the butterfly chat that I think it was Professor Sharon would say, and like the butterfly kind of chat was about having certain people that you would drop kind of wisdom into their ear, and then they would essentially take your vision to another person, and eventually it would be pollinated and it would spread like wildfire.
Right.
And like that's part of what, you know, like the conversations that I'm having, that we've been having over the last several weeks about my vision for where I want to see the school move. It's been with the union leadership. It's been with teacher groups. I pop into every single PLC meeting in our organization. And even if I'm there for like 15 to 20 minutes and I'm like, all right, great, tell me what's working. Hey, tell me your thoughts. I want to kick this idea that I have around moving to synchronous teaching. Like, what are your ideas on how we could potentially like think about this as a next step? And like, I've also, obviously with leaders, that's like off the bat, you gotta, you know, bring these ideas to leaders, but we've also have gone to parents. So I have a core group of parents that I know are like, will give me the real deal. A core group of parents that will, in so many ways, just say, look, this is not going to work for our community. You got to really rethink this. Thank you, Mr. Palmore, but this is unfortunately not going to be something that's going to work.
That's now, so great, like that you are pulling in parents. I can't tell you how many times. I mean, I think even in my experience, like the mistakes that I made around, you know, putting something out, and like we have to think about all the stakeholders and how this is really impacting them, and they're really, once they're bought, it's also about investing them, because once they're invested, they're also going to be the ones driving out your mission.
Right. Shout out to UPenn doctoral students in the house. They give me a little shout out behind the scenes, so shout out to y'all. Yeah, and you know, the thing that we need to tap into more, and when I say shout out to parents, like connecting with parents, is obviously through surveys and things like that, and those are things that we use in our organization. But it's also just picking up the phone and like talking to folks and real, like I'm thinking about doing this. Like there's 5 parents that I connect with in almost every single the 3 campuses that I have, and they will tell me flat out if this is something that will work, and this is something that I won't work. And I will say, shout out to cohort 10 too. I will say that those 5 parents came from a parent meeting that I had in year 1 or year 2 of my work in this organization, and those are parents that were fiercely against me when I proposed a change to our schedule. They gave me a ton of pushback in a town hall meeting, and I talked to them afterwards and was like, look, you know, I appreciate your pushback. Do you mind being a part of a group that gives me some feedback informally? And those parents now have become advocates of the work. They have been butterflies, if you will, to pollinate to other things. And they're giving me feedback. The one thing I need to tap into more are students. I definitely need to figure out a way. I'll shout out to another Columbia head in the house. But I do need
Columbia.
Yes, that's right. I do need to tap into more students. And that's like, that feedback was easier when we were online. We were on campus, and we got to figure out ways to do that.
I hope you can't say it online.
Yeah, we got to figure out ways to do that remotely, you know.
Yes. Maybe, I don't know if your schools have do they have like student governments or student bodies? I don't know, maybe tapping into that, but It sounds like the parents, you've thought through a strategic way to get your parents involved and to get them buying into, and also just giving you like that feedback from the ground,
right,
on
right.
what's happening and whether or not something they believe something would work and why, and just their perspective. So that's really dope. Someone said student government may be a nice way to do that.
Yep.
Student voice is super powerful.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dr. Ford, if you're on here, I think you're on here. You run in student government. We got to talk about that offline. All right.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like that's like something that's resonating with a few people. I have a group joining my next instructional leadership team meeting. Okay, that's awesome.
That's all right.
I mean, kids will give you, we all know, kids will give you the real. They'll give you the honest feedback. Someone quoted, "I appreciate your pushback. Would you mind being a part of my team? That takes courage and vulnerability to know blind spots exist." Kudos, Curtis. Absolutely. I love how you did that. That's a quote that I think everybody should just either screenshot or just write down. Really, because when you get that resistance is not a bad thing. And I love how you leaned into that resistance and you use it as an opportunity to build a bridge, right? And so like enlist those people versus what a lot of leaders do is we get resistance and we like shut that group of parents out, or like, oh, forget it, you know, they just don't understand. We're still going to do this my way, and we miss that opportunity to cultivate that community piece with them.
Yeah, you know, just a quick story in that when I was an assistant principal, the principal that I worked with, she was a great leader, and I learned so much from her, and so grateful to work under her. But one of the things that I learned vicariously through her was like when she got pushback from parents, she legit would like have the security guard not allow that person to come into the next PTA meeting. And I was like, how are we going to learn? How are we going to get better? How are we going to grow? How are we going to incorporate them? This person's going to be with us for 9 years, K through 8. Like, how are we making sure that we are getting them on board? So that was a lesson that I learned vicariously through her.
And it is not just, this is very, very common. Not just in schools, like in schools, but also outside of schools when leaders are met. And I'm just going to name this, and we're not going to go deep into this because we're going to start wrapping up. But when we are met with resistance and our ability to respond to that resistance, oftentimes reflects the way we have dealt with conflict or resistance in our own life experiences.
That's right. Yeah.
And it shows up in those moments in leadership. And so the encouragement here is, you know, Curtis, obviously you've done the work. Like you've gone through
we're trying to do the work. Leadership development
programs. That's one of the reasons why you were able to, you know, lean in. You also experienced the opposite of that when a leader, you know, pushed, like totally built in some way, like built walls. Right. Or push people away. So thank you for sharing that point. No problem, so Curtis, as we kind of wrap up, I know there's some more folks who just joined. We've talked, Curtis, you dropped so many great gems. There's some quotes up here for those of you that are just coming in. Go up, just scroll up, screenshot some of the quotes because you definitely want to take some of that away. But as we wrap up, what would you like to share with us or like close out with?
So probably 3 things. I think the first thing is just from a practical level. Like obviously when we start school, we're going to have to, shout out to Co-op City in the house. Okay, back in the
Co-op City, what's up? Thanks for joining us.
We praying for y'all too, man. Yeah, I know y'all had a big loss, man, with your moms. But this is, you know, we obviously need to rethink the safety aspects of how to get back to school, and that's going to be a hurdle that we have to have. But I really want to impress upon everyone 2 or 3 things. The first is that trauma-informed education is probably going to be just as important as curriculum. Like it is important that we really, as someone said earlier, like we meet kids at where they're at, we meet their needs first. It is going to be uber important that if you don't know what it is, that you take time with your leadership team, with your teachers, to really figure out. We used to, back in the day, it was like, the therapist will deal with the kids that have challenges. And what we found out was that
we're now assuming that responsibility, believe it or not, like that therapist hat that teachers also wear.
Exactly. Well, part of the problem is that when we were allowing the therapist to deal with it, essentially Black and brown kids were getting IEPs, and they may not have even needed to have an IEP. Shout out to my mentor, Kennery, in the house.
Hi, mentor Kennery.
Yes, she's helped me over the years, so shout out to her. I love her. Thank you. But you know, it's important that
Kennery Patel. Wait.
Yes, Kennery Patel. Yes,
she's in Atlanta. Kennery.
Yes, you do know Kennery.
Oh my
yes.
God! Hi, Kennery.
Yes.
I have to stop and pause. Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
That's
yes.
world.
Yes. So trauma-informed education is a must. We have to figure out how to have that when you're doing PD in September or May or whenever you go, in August or July, or whenever you're getting back,
yes.
You got to make sure that your teachers are getting that alongside the curriculum work that you're going to be doing with teachers. It's also important that we figure out how to just have a different vision for education. So like we actually have created a new vision. I can share with you, you can share it with folks on the call, but we've created a new vision for what education will look like. And that is a threefold vision that has a focus on academics, supporting academic gaps that our students may have because of closure, supporting the social and emotional needs because of closure, and most importantly, supporting the safety concerns that we have to really rethink. And it's important that you have that. And then the last thing that I'll share is that, earlier you talked about being vulnerable. Like, it's important that we just like take off that guard of like, I'm the leader and I make all the decisions and I'm the top dog of the house. Like, that's just not how we have to work right now. Like right now, some of the best ideas have come from literally, and this is no joke, one of the best ideas during this pandemic came from someone who cleans the school. And I was literally at a school handing out laptops, and one of our cleaners, and I hope he's doing well because he has COVID now, but he was handing out stuff and he was like, I really think you should really think about this food distribution idea a little bit differently. And he gave some tidbits on how to like do that.
Wow.
And like for about 4 weeks now, we've been using the strategy that he suggested. And I really think it's important that as we rethink how we're going to get back into the game when the brick and mortar schools open up, that we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, to get ideas and to use the community to really take this education to the next level.
Wow. I really appreciate how just even as a leader, you are willing to listen to your community and understand that it's not, about you coming up with all of the solutions, but really leveraging the perspectives, the talent, and the expertise that all of your staff and community is bringing to the table. So Curtis, thank you so much for those 3 points. You heard it from himself, Curtis. Trauma-informed education. How do you form a new vision for your school community? Because obviously some of the focus areas are going to have to shift. We're going to have to be really intentional going back to school and whatever that looks like in summertime as well as fall. And then the third point, it's important to ensure that you take off that hat. Who's speed person personified?
Oh, that's a future doctor in the house. That's
hey.
Yeah, that's my man Steve. He's a future doctor. We're studying at Penn together.
Awesome.
Yeah, shout out to the whole Penn cohort. There's a lot of love. We have a bunch of Black PhDs in the house that are coming down the line. So some Black and brown PhDs in the house.
Love it.
Represent. Thank you for all of y'all representing. Mike as well. We got a Latino brother as well. So yes, we all doing our thing. Yeah, I'm drinking water. Kai, I'm drinking water. This is water, brother. This is water.
Kai, the real question is, what were you drinking?
Yeah, what was you drinking, brother? What was you drinking?
Anyways, all right. Everyone have a wonderful night. Curtis, thank you so much. for taking time out of your busy schedule to bless us with, you know, what's going on in your community. Bless us with your expertise, with your talent, with your perspective. We appreciate it. And I know for a fact people are walking away feeling empowered with at least a bite-sized action step that they can take back to their community as soon as tomorrow. So,
well, I'm grateful. I'm humbled. And those of you that are ed leaders, we got district leaders in the house, folks running schools. I have to tell you, Ms. Pavone has been working with me for quite a bit. She is helping to transform a leader to take her from good to great. So I do want to say, if you need some PD, strategic planning and so forth, definitely check her out.
Yes,
thank you.
Some great work.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Everyone, take care.
Have a good night.
Good night.